Hello and welcome to Megan's Minute. I'm your host, Megan Lavin, the owner of the allergy-friendly recipe site, 𝗔𝗹𝗹𝗲𝗶𝗃𝗶𝗶. Together with Allergic Living, we discuss topics that affect those living with food allergies. This month, we're talking about how to pack and cook when you're on a trip and staying at a VRBO or Airbnb vacation rental. Typically, when we've taken trips, we've either stayed with family or been in places that are able to feed us. So the burden isn't on me. Someplace like a Disneyland or a cruise. Otherwise, when we've traveled, they've just been really short trips, like a day or so, where we could just eat out of the hotel room, pack some sandwiches, that was it. In fact, I made a video about how to cook in a hotel room, and I'll link that below. So just this past weekend, we took our very first trip where we stayed at a VRBO, and I thought I would share some helpful tips that we learned along the way. This vacation was 5 days and 4 nights, so a little longer than we're used to, but our kids are getting older, so we're starting to extend them. And I just knew that a hotel would not cut it because we didn't want to eat out that much, both due to food allergies and budgets and just wanting to eat healthier home-cooked meals because part of the trip was my son's soccer tournament. I was stressed because the trip was about an 8-hour drive from our house, and I wasn't sure what to pack ahead versus what to buy at the store when we got there and what to make since I didn't want it going to waste since we wouldn't have room to bring back leftovers. And with inflation, I didn't want to be throwing away a ton of food when we had to empty out our VRBO. So what to do? We also have a smaller trunk, and with my husband, me, my 4 growing kids, all of our soccer gear, and the SUV, we just didn't have enough room to pack the entire trip's groceries in our vehicle. So I prioritized snacks for the road trip to get us there, as well as some essentials that I wanted to make sure we had, like safe bread and some butter that we could use throughout the stay, as those can be harder to find depending on your location. Even in the same grocery chain, they can have different brands depending on the area, and I didn't want to take my chances. I also packed our first night's dinner because we planned to get the rest once we got there, and I knew we'd want dinner right when we showed up. We did simple meals. For example, that first dinner, I packed frozen Italian sausage in a cooler, along with just a jar of Prego, gluten-free spaghetti noodles, and canned green beans. Nothing fancy. Almost a little embarrassing, but my kids loved that, and it required no chopping, just dump, boil, and I knew we'd be haggard from a long drive. I wouldn't be in the mood to cook much. Once we got unpacked, I went to the store and I prioritized simple things because, shoot, I'm on vacation too. So I grabbed things for breakfast like breakfast sausage, Cheerios, and Udi's. Then I placed value on what the kids would actually eat. Vacation for me is not about fighting over meals. I wanted things that dive right into it without complaint. For lunches, I knew we'd have some leftovers, and then I also had, like I mentioned, the gluten-free bread plus the sun butter and jelly that I had packed. I also grabbed some easy things like gluten-free chicken nuggets, frozen fries, and purchased a Ďaja frozen pizza too. For dinners, I planned my chicken tikka masala, link below, so I could set it and forget it in the crock pot so we could go out and play and come back to dinner made. For another night, it was chicken noodle soup for my cookbook that I could leave in the Instant Pot. Yes, I did bother to pack that myself because I knew it'd be worth it. Another night was breakfast tacos. For the last lunch and dinner, since we would be traveling and on that long drive home, we stopped at our typical safe restaurants, which are Costa Vida and In-N-Out. We saved dining out for those traveling for quickness, but at the VRBO, we made sure that we did homemade meals. I also prepackaged little sandwich baggies with the spices that I needed for those couple of recipes. That way, I wasn't carting around entire spice jars that take up more room. Things like garlic, lemon juice, bouillon, garam masala were all pre-measured for each meal so I could just pour out the sandwich baggies content for extra ease and not be reliant on what measuring spoons the property might or might not have. That way, I only had to buy the chicken and dump some veggies into this Instant Pot or slow cooker, and voila, dinner was made. We ended up eating just about everything I brought. I was pretty proud of myself. I felt good having little food waste. It was easy to pack things like applesauce, sugar snap peas, baby oranges for some fresh fruit and veggies to snack on either while we were out and about or just in the property so we could still have some fresh fruits. During the packing and planning, it had been a little stressful, I'm going to admit, trying to think of everything. I'm a fan of a written list that helped me, but when it went smoothly, I knew that now this is going to be my go-to menu for when we travel. I'm going to save it because it was a good mixture of low effort but high reward. It always feels scary to travel with food allergies, even if you've done it in the past. There's always a new spin to it, whether now it's a new location, your kids are older, or something like being in a VRBO for the first time where you have to pre-plan your food just because you can't stop at a McDonald's. There's always going to be something popping up. But remember, you can do it. Also, tips. You won't have access to your pantry, so things like nonstick spray or olive oil to cook with, you may need to pack it or buy it there. My advice, think of every single step and item you'll need to make a recipe successful that maybe at home you just absent-mindedly grab. Oftentimes, things like aluminum foil and plastic wrap aren't included in the property either, so plan accordingly if your recipes will have leftovers. Last tip, I recommend emailing the property beforehand to see what kitchen tools they have. I could see some in the listings pictures, but I wanted to make for sure that this wasn't an old photo, they hadn't broken since then, and they did have a slow cooker and plenty of pots and pans and cooking utensils and even leftover containers, which is handy. If they don't have leftover containers, I recommend bringing some, or at the very least some plastic baggies, because those take up less room. As I've seen before, the compensation for pushing yourself outside of your limit really pays off. We were able to see Utah's amazing Zion National Park and have a good, relaxing weekend. I really hope this inspires you to get out there with your food allergic family too. If you want to see some of our other travels like Disneyland, Legoland, or our first family cruise, be sure to sift through my previous videos, both on Allergic Living's IGTV or their YouTube channel. Leave any questions you have in the comments, as well as any tips you have for staying on vacation rental properties too, to help out future readers. Until next time, safe travels and take care.